Hi, and welcome to English-Fabule. Are you learning English? Great. Let's learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's get started.
In the cold winter of 1955, a special red telephone sat on Colonel Harry Shoup's desk. This phone was inside a secret military bunker in Colorado Springs, the heart of the Continental Air Defense Command, or CONAD. It was not a normal phone. It was a direct line, strictly for the most terrible news, the start of World War III. CONAD's main job was to detect any Soviet bomber attack coming over the Arctic. Everyone there knew this red phone would only ring with news of war, perhaps even nuclear attacks that could destroy cities. Colonel Shoup was a tough soldier. He had fought bravely in World War II and Korea. He understood the awful arithmetic of the Cold War, a time when the threat of atomic bombs was real and constant. President Eisenhower also spoke of this great fear. Colonel Shoup was always ready for the worst, expecting to hear news of enemy planes. He was a man trained for war, a hardened soldier, not for games. One quiet winter night, the red phone rang. Colonel Shoup's heart beat faster. Only one other person was supposed to have this secret number. He picked it up quickly, expecting doom. But instead of a general, serious voice, he heard a small child. The child asked, "Is this Santa Claus?" This was not a prank. A department store, Sears, had placed an advertisement in a local newspaper. It told children to call Santa directly, but there was a mistake in the phone number. Because of one wrong digit, children called CONAD's secret line by accident, seeking Christmas magic, not war news. Colonel Shoup was very angry at first. He thought someone was making a joke about his serious work. But then the child on the other end began to cry. In that moment, something big changed inside the hardened soldier. His voice deepened. He adopted his best ho 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 and asked the child if they had been good that year. This unexpected call, born from a simple mistake, would not only change Christmas forever, it also planted the seed for how the public would eventually view military surveillance. That split-second decision by Colonel Shoup to answer as Santa Claus launched a 70-year tradition. 2. The wrong number. The special phone call Colonel Shoup received was no typical mistake. It began with a newspaper ad from a big store, Sears. This ad invited children to call Santa Claus on Christmas Eve, but there was a small error in the number printed. Children saw ME2-6681, yet when they dialed, one digit was wrong. Instead of Santa, their calls went straight to a secret line at CONAD, the military's vital air defense center. Colonel Shoup was very surprised, then quickly became angry. He first thought it was a prank by someone inside the command center. He demanded to know who was playing such a joke. But then the small child on the phone began to cry. In that moment, Shoup's mood changed. He made his voice deep and friendly, using his best ho ho ho, and asked the child about being good. After their talk, Shoup spoke to the child's embarrassed mother, who explained the Sears ad and the wrong number. Shoup hung up, but the special phone rang again. Then it rang many more times. More children were calling CONAD, hoping to speak to Santa. This was becoming a big problem for the military. Colonel Shoup knew he needed help. He called Colonel Barney Oldfield, CONAD's public affairs officer. Oldfield was skilled at managing news. Shoup asked him to tell newspapers that Conrad was now tracking Santa Claus's journey. Colonel Oldfield quickly wrote a press release. It said that Conrad, with other military forces, would track and guard Santa and his sleigh from those who do not believe in Christmas. This last part had a hidden political meaning. In the 1950s Cold War, those who do not believe in Christmas secretly referred to the Soviet Union. It made the military look like kind protectors of Christmas magic, not just a war machine. It made their constant surveillance seem good. At first, Colonel Shoup did not plan to repeat this event next year, but then Oldfield gave him surprising news. Major news agencies were already waiting for Conrad to track Santa again. The public had loved the story. Newspapers had already made it a new tradition. The military had started something they could not easily stop. They had to continue tracking Santa. This unexpected public demand forced the military to make the operation bigger. They had accidentally created a new, lasting Christmas tradition. 3. The Big Fear. The 1950s was a time of great fear. People called it the Cold War, a long period of tension. This war was not fought with guns, but with the threat of nuclear bombs. People worried about a war that could end everything. President Eisenhower spoke of the awful arithmetic, meaning if one country used atomic weapons, others would too. This would lead to mass destruction. This deep fear touched everyone in America, every day. In this scary world, the U.S. military worked constantly. General Curtis LeMay was a key leader of the Strategic Air Command, or SAC. His job was to make sure America's bombers were always ready. These planes carried powerful nuclear bombs. LeMay trained pilots to drop atomic weapons on enemy cities if war started. His B-52 planes were kept ready to fly 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It was a very serious and frightening mission, meant to protect the country by being ready for the worst. So why would such a powerful military, ready for war, also track Santa Claus? This was a strange idea. On one side, a machine designed to destroy. On the other, a happy story for children. The military saw a special chance. By tracking Santa, they showed a friendly face. They wanted to seem kind and caring. This was a clever use of soft power. It helped people feel good about the military's constant watch over the skies. It made being watched seem normal and helpful. This type of soft power, making serious things friendly, would be very important later as new ways of watching people, like on the internet, grew. This would be explored further in Chapter 6. The people of the United States lived with constant worry. The threat of an atomic attack was very real. The government wanted to keep everyone safe, but also calm their minds. Tracking Santa was a way to send a message. We are strong, we are ready, but we also care about your children and their Christmas magic. It changed the complex tools of defense into something simple and reassuring. It showed that even facing immense danger, there was still room for hope and joy. But the big fear was still there. The same special radar systems that tracked Santa's flight path were also always looking for something else. These powerful radars, placed across the cold Arctic, had two very different jobs. One was to help children believe in a happy story. The other, far more serious job was to find Soviet bombers that could bring the end of civilization. Every bright spot on the radar screen could be Santa's sleigh, or it could be the start of a terrible, world-ending war. 4. The Wall of Radar. The DEW Line was a massive project. It was called the Distant Early Warning Line. It helped to protect the United States and Canada. In the 1950s, people feared an attack from Soviet planes coming over the North Pole. Existing radar systems were not enough. They gave too little time to prepare. Also, sometimes they showed birds instead of planes. So the DEW Line was built. It was a long chain of 63 radar stations. These stations stretched for almost 10,000 kilometers, from Alaska to Baffin Island. They were placed very far north. This would give many hours of warning. Building these stations was a huge task. 25,000 workers moved to the Arctic. They faced deep snow, extreme cold, long periods of darkness, and ground that was always frozen. Normal ways of building did not work here. Special vehicles and planes brought supplies to these distant places. The DEW Line started working on July 31, 1957. The radar systems were very advanced for that time. They could see up to 300 kilometers away. But just seeing things was not enough. They needed a way to process all this data quickly. This is where the SAGE system came in. SAGE meant Semi-Automatic Ground Environment. It was the largest electronic system ever built then. Each SAGE computer, made by IBM, filled an entire floor. It was about 22,000 square feet. These computers used thousands of vacuum tubes and needed a lot of electricity. They could take information from many radars at once. They showed what was happening to over 100 operators. These operators even used special light pens to interact with the screen. The SAGE network connected centers across the country. It used phone lines and microwave towers. This created one big system from the Arctic to the southern United States. Its main goal was to find Soviet planes, but it could also show other things like a drawing of a sleigh. One big challenge for these radar systems was to tell the difference between a Soviet plane and something else. Earlier systems sometimes confused birds with planes, so engineers had to create special filters. These filters learned to ignore the movement of animals, like flocks of birds. For Santa, these filters would need to be changed. How would the system tell a flying reindeer from a fast-moving jet? This was a puzzle. This analog technology, with its vacuum tubes and huge computers, was very important. But new threats were coming. Missiles, not planes, would soon be the main danger. The DEW Line and SAGE system would become old. If the Santa tracking program wanted to continue, it would need to change. It had to become something new, or it would stop. 5. Why they did it. The military's choice to track Santa Claus was far more than just a simple holiday event. It was a very clever psychological operation designed to make the powerful military seem more approachable. During the tense times of the Cold War, many people feared nuclear conflict and the military's immense power. By tracking Santa, the military created an image of kindness. This action helped to humanize the often frightening idea of pressing the nuclear button. It showed that even the military, with its advanced surveillance tools, cared about children and the magic of Christmas. This subtle approach made the concept of being watched, or surveillance, feel normal and even comforting to generations of children and their families. The military greatly needed public trust. They had vast radar systems and strong computers, built primarily to detect enemy aircraft. But by also using these same systems to follow Santa's journey, the military presented these tools as protectors of something cherished. They sent a clear message. Yes, we are always watching, but we watch to protect you. We watch to protect the spirit of Christmas, and even Santa Claus himself. This made the infrastructure of constant vigilance seem benevolent rather than threatening. Working on the Santa tracking program also brought a unique change to the soldiers. Many military personnel, accustomed to serious duties, found themselves softening as they answered calls from eager children. This heartfelt interaction, where soldiers brought joy to kids, is known as civil-military bonding. It reminded service members that their profession had a human side. General Victor E. Renouart, Jr., a former commander, highlighted how this mission boosted morale. He said that soldiers who volunteered felt a huge smile on their faces, knowing they had made a positive difference for children around the world. It showed them they were part of a larger, more human narrative. This successful public relations strategy taught governments an important lesson. It provided a clear blueprint for how to present powerful surveillance systems in a positive light. This method would later be used to introduce and normalize new forms of digital surveillance to the public. Slowly, people began to accept that being constantly monitored by technology was not only common, but also potentially beneficial. The idea that being watched by the government was for their own good became more widespread, mirroring the acceptance of Santa tracking. For many decades, phone lines were the main way children connected with the Santa tracking program. However, as the 1990s arrived, the world experienced a rapid change. The internet quickly became a powerful new way to communicate. Suddenly, the phone lines, which had served so well, were completely overwhelmed. Millions of children and their families wanted instant updates about Santa's location, far more than the phone system could handle. This new, powerful force of the internet created a major crisis. The sheer number of requests created a problem of scale, threatening the future of the entire Santa tracking operation unless it could find a new way to adapt and reach its vast audience. 6. Santa on the screen. The telephone was an important way for children to call NORAD for many years, but by the late 1990s, a new way to connect with the world appeared: the Internet. In 1997, NORAD launched its first website, noradsanta.org. Now, children could go online to follow Santa's journey around the world without waiting for a phone line. This marked a big change, moving the beloved tradition from sound to sight. Soon, other big companies became interested in tracking Santa. In 2004, engineers at Google thought they could make Santa's journey look even better. They used new map technology to show Santa moving in an interactive, three-dimensional way. This made the tracking feel more real and exciting. At first, not many people saw it, but quickly millions of children watched Santa on Google's maps. For 5 years, NORAD and Google worked together, sharing Santa's journey with the world. But in 2012, they decided to work separately. NORAD then partnered with Microsoft, using Bing Maps for its new tracker. People called this period the Santa Tracker Wars, as two big tech companies competed to bring Santa to life on screens. To make Santa's journey more realistic, NORAD used very advanced technology. They used a system called SPEARS, which means Space-Based Infrared System. These are satellites in space that can see heat. They were first used to look for missile launches, but they could also detect the warm glow of Santa's sleigh. In 2012, a company used a new mapping program named Cesium to create a three-dimensional view of Earth. This allowed NORAD to show Santa flying over mountains and cities with great detail. By 2013, Santa and his reindeer were animated in high detail. They were shown moving through real places on the three-dimensional globe, showing cities and landscapes below. This new way of seeing Santa was so clear and lively that it almost blurred the line between what was real and what was make-believe for many young viewers. For a generation growing up with screens, Santa seemed to be truly flying through the night, not just an icon on a flat map. This made the magic of Christmas feel very close and believable. However, as the digital images improved, a new kind of problem began to appear. The way Santa flew on the screen, following his route over the Earth, did not always seem to fit with the rules of real science. The detailed pictures showed things that were hard to explain with normal physics, creating a conflict between the myth and the data displayed. 7. How fast he flies. The last chapters talked about tracking Santa using advanced systems. Now, let's think about the real speed Santa needs. Imagine visiting every single child around the world who believes in him. He must do this in just one night, a very short time. The Earth turns around once every 24 hours. The distance around the middle of the Earth is about 40,075 kilometers. Even if Santa uses the different time zones to his advantage, flying eastward to gain hours, the speed needed is truly amazing. To deliver gifts to billions of children, Santa's sleigh would need to fly at speeds much faster than sound, even close to the speed of light. This is what scientists call relativistic speeds. If Santa's sleigh moved so fast, it would create big problems. The air around the sleigh would get extremely hot due to friction. This huge amount of heat would create a clear signal, like a fire, which our special infrared satellites, such as SBIRS, could easily detect. Also, the sudden stops and starts, called accelerations, would create forces strong enough to break apart any normal vehicle or material. However, the military and its public relations teams offer some clever explanations for these physics challenges. When asked about how Santa does it, they talk about it like a real mission. They explain that the international dateline helps Santa get more time. They also mention time dilation, a real science idea from physics. This idea says that time can slow down for objects moving at very high speeds. They suggest this helps Santa finish his work in one night. They even make jokes about the heat coming from the reindeer's noses, saying it's part of the magic. This careful way of talking is part of what we can call applied fiction. It means serious, adult experts use real scientific tools and ideas to try and explain an event that is not truly real. They use advanced radar and satellite data, along with physics, to make the Santa story more solid and believable for everyone. In today's world, it is often hard to tell what is true and what is false. We hear a lot about fake news. But the story of Santa and how fast he flies is different. This special shared story is one of the few fabrications that almost everyone around the globe agrees to accept. It is a universal belief, kept alive by systems designed for very different purposes. 8. The end of the story. The story comes to its end, but the tradition continues. From a red telephone in a bunker in 1955 to a smartphone screen today, NORAD still tracks Santa. It has been 70 years since a child's phone call changed everything. Now millions of people visit the website. Thousands of volunteers answer phones on Christmas Eve, receiving hundreds of thousands of calls. Why does the military, a group focused on defense and security, keep this magic alive? It is more than just a nice gesture. The Cold War was a time of fear. Countries wanted to know everything about their enemies. They built big machines like radar systems and satellites to watch the world. They wanted to remove all surprises, to know every threat. But some things cannot be known or controlled. In the middle of this high-tech surveillance, a child's innocent voice came through. It was a surprise for the machines, which were built only to find dangers. They found something else, pure innocence. Colonel Shoup and Colonel Oldfield chose to join in this magic. They said, "Yes, our machines see everything, but we also choose to see Santa Claus. We choose to keep wonder alive. Even during the time of nuclear bombs, we choose to believe in Christmas." This choice is still important today. We live in a world where phones, cameras, and computers track many things about us. NORAD tracking Santa reminds us that there can still be mystery. It shows that there is space for imagination, even when technology tracks everything. Children call or visit the website. They know it's a story, but they want to believe. The military helps them believe. They use their big surveillance systems for a happy story. This shows that even powerful systems can be used for wonder, not just for danger. The red phone in Colorado Springs is still there. It waits for important calls about war. But on Christmas Eve, it is quiet. Instead, the phones for Santa ring without stopping. These calls are not about fear or destruction. They are about hope and the magic that still lives in the world. They show that hope can be a much stronger signal than fear.
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world.